Welcome to Curito Connects. I'm your host, Jenn, and I've been conversing with friends around the world about life challenges and impactful moments. Conversations on this platform look at answering the questions, how we overcome challenges and how our experiences shape who we are and the work we do today. I hope this work can inspire you on your own personal and individual journey. Let's dive right in. Hello, my guest today is Austrian born and now residing in Taiwan, Gabi Seewald, co-creator of Awoven, which is Journeys That Connect, and I'll let you go into this more later in our conversation. So hi Gabi, and welcome to Curito Connects.
Hi Jenn, thanks so much for having me.
So we've actually never met, and so this is our first time meeting in person in Taipei. But thanks to technology and friends, you get connected very easily. And I think, and I mentioned this to you before, I think during the pandemic, I did take one of your online Zoom classes. So that was fun. I'm excited to dive into your background, how an Austrian ended up in Taiwan, and promoting self-healing and restoration here, and also open up the conversation about how an accident during your surgery in 2010 damaged your nervous system that led you on this healing path. So I'm going to stop here and allow you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Thanks, that's great. Thank you so much for the introduction. Well, you ask, how does an Austrian end up here in Taiwan? The question is, how deep do you want to go and how far back?
It's an open floor, so
yeah,
it can go back as your many lives of reincarnation. We can go as far in that direction if you like, or
Yeah. Well, let's start with the very practical this life things first. So I would actually say very originally in this life, my dad really connected me to this part of the world.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because he started to take business trips here already more than 40 years ago. My parents had a trading company in Austria, custom jewelry that was first made in Austria, and then all the made in Asia, made in Taiwan, made in Hong Kong started to open up, and he started to travel here. And it's actually very funny because I have a very early childhood memory, very early, probably just 2-3 years old, when my dad brought me a little, electronic piano, a small one that you can hold in your hands. And it had a sticker on the back that said, "Made in Taiwan."
The little gold sticker.
Yes.
The classic gold sticker.
Yes. And in a way, you could say, that was probably my very first connection already with Taiwan in this life. And then, I went to school in Austria. I studied there. I did my undergraduate, my master's there. But I was very drawn to this part of the world. And my dad actually started to take me and my sister on business trips from the age of 12.
Wow.
And it was in one of these trips that I actually, I was fascinated. I have to say, we were in Hong Kong, and I was seeing all these characters and observing, what was going on. And I told my parents I want to learn Chinese. And luckily, because my parents have always, had a lot of contact with cultures and people and places from all over the world, they were very supportive. But it turned out at that time, it wasn't even that easy yet to learn Chinese in Austria, where I grew up. As a junior, senior high school student. So I waited. I did all my studies first, and then I decided to actually go to Beijing. And that was 2001, 2002. I went as a student to learn some Mandarin, mainly spoken language. They used a new method with us, which was great. And from there, I think really I got more and more reconnected, I almost want to say, with some people might call karma
Yes.
of this part of the world. And then I moved to Hong Kong in 2004. I got a job there at that time from an Austrian jewelry company, like a luxury retail jewelry brand. And they wanted to actually build the market in Asia, starting from Hong Kong. So they hired me. It was a great experience of almost like running my own company without needing to invest my own money and getting paid for it.
That's like the perfect scenario.
Yes. And so starting from Hong Kong, but it was also really, really very, busy, really being in that kind of world of luxury retail, a lot of business travel.
A lot of glamour.
Yeah, and also a lot
Hustle.
of, at least 2-3 trips a month in the region, coming to Taiwan as well. But the trips back then really looked kind of like, flying in the morning, going straight from the airport to Sogo department store where they had a counter, and flying out in the evening again. So to be honest, at that time, because I didn't see much about Taiwan, from the airport to the downtown, I really always thought it's so ugly. And then, ultimately moved to Hong Kong, married my husband there, got my twin boys there in 2007, and in 2009, my ex-husband actually got a job offer to move to Taiwan. And so we decided to come here as a family in 2009. And the first year here, when I was pregnant actually with my daughter, it was like heaven, I can really tell you, because I had the time to really explore the island. And I realized, wow, I was I never saw this about Taiwan before. The nature, the beauty of the nature, the diversity, temples, culture, indigenous culture, all these things I actually really did not know exist in Taiwan. And I really enjoyed that. And I also enjoyed life here for family, in terms of compared to Hong Kong, for example. It is a bit slower. You can find, your places to live, with garden, pretty naturally, or more closer to nature, which is really something I started to realize I missed. I wasn't aware of before how much I actually missed it. Yeah. So that's basically, how I really ended up in Taiwan in this life.
I'm going to sidetrack a little bit because
Sure.
you mentioned something which I resonate with, and also think that some of the audience who listen to Curito Connects might relate to, or
Yes.
there's a question to. And my question is, was there any point in time where your family's business, where maybe for you and your sister, it was were you guys going to run, pick up the family business?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. Actually, no. And, I want to say, the way we were raised, we grew up, is so my mom and my dad, they took over that business from my grandfather, from my mom's dad. He started it after World War II. And that was kind of just almost more like a natural succession. It was kind of natural that one of the children would just take over the business. And so they did that. And for my dad would actually always tell us children, look, I want you really to create your own life. And I want you to be happy. And so if one of you, we have 3 children, but my sister is 3 years younger, my brother is 10 years younger. If one of you wants to take over the business, this is an opportunity. You can do that, but you don't have to. You're really free to go. And this is really something I have to say I deeply, deeply appreciate about my parents for just, giving us that freedom of choice. But at the same time, it was always clear, and it is clear to this day, that we can always come back home. Meaning, there is nothing ever that we could not bring to our parents. Like, even if we totally screwed up, yeah, like we would still have a home there.
Okay.
And I guess that is, for me personally, something, that I don't only want to give to my children as well, but that has actually helped me, I realized over the years, to really, have a sense of home in me and a sense of belonging. And in a certain way also given me a sense of strength that I probably did things and allowed myself to make experience in life that other people will really say are very risky.
Right.
Like, kind of, wow, why are you doing this? You could fail and all kinds of things could happen. Like, not risky in a sense of putting my, like physical safety or health at risk. Okay. But for me, I realized, life is about living and about making experiences. Yes, within a certain, understanding of what are my own limits, like physical limits or, financial limits, things like that. I think that has also been a process of learning and realizing that. But that for me also comes with, a sense of, when you have a sense of freedom, but also a sense of responsibility. But in yourself that no matter what really happens, you will always have a place to go to. I think that allows you to do that.
Wow, that's so great that your parents from very early on nurtured that for you and your siblings.
Yeah.
So neither of you three are.
No.
Everyone's doing their own thing.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. But the business is still there, or you guys sold it, or.
Yeah, the business is still there. It has transformed over the years,
right.
And my dad is still doing a little bit with it because he enjoys that.
Of
but
course.
That's it.
For that generation, that's a very common storyline.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so we'll go back to 2010. So we know now why you ended up in Taiwan.
Yeah.
So we're now. You said you were pregnant with your daughter in 2009, and now we're in 2010. So what happened in 2010? That really flipped your world upside down?
Yeah, so thanks for asking that. So what really happened is when I delivered my daughter in end of September 2010, she ended up being an emergency C-section. And I mean, I have to say, Taiwan, in terms of medical care is really fantastic. Like, if you need a surgery, you have an accident, you're definitely well taken care of. But as we know, wherever people work, there sometimes are accidents. And, I was already in labor. It wasn't a scheduled C-section. I was having contractions. Things were actually going pretty fast because I had twins before, and I had given birth to the twins in a completely natural way in Hong Kong. And so it ended up being an emergency C-section. And what I did not know, of course, in the moment it happened, was that when they put the epidural here in the back of my spine, it went into the wrong place. And so the drugs that basically go in there, right, they actually went up all the way in the spine to the head, and they severely damaged my nervous system. But the way I experienced it in the moment it happened was that it felt like, there was this veil going over me. It's like I stayed conscious. I didn't fall asleep, but it was like suddenly, it's like a totally foggy mind. Everything becomes like foggy and kind of numb. And I still remember actually saying to my doctor in this moment, something's wrong. I still just said something's wrong. And after that, I just did not know anymore because I couldn't consciously know what was happening. And so I didn't fall unconscious. I was awake, but I was like behind this veil, and you know, my whole body actually got numb, like my whole body. And I couldn't move anything. I couldn't move my whole body. And then slowly, after a few hours, the movements came back, but it kept feeling like, you know, like when your arm or your leg falls asleep.
Yeah.
That feeling of like it's not 100% awake, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of numb.
Yeah.
And you kind of don't have like full control over it. And that's how it stayed in that state. Plus, a few days later, when you know all the pain drugs and all the pain medicine started to wear off, it started to be super painful. Like my arms, my legs, it was like 1,000 needle pins, which is like nerve pains.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I went into this whole kind of, I really call it like my whole ecosystem like broke down. And I didn't understand what was happening. And of course, I went to see the doctors, and I still remember very clearly this moment, you know, when I was sitting in the hospital with the doctors and they were checking me out, and they brought in like a psychiatrist, and he started to ask me these questions like, you know, do you have, you know, in your family history of like, depression and postnatal, And I was sitting there, and it was so strange, I can tell you, because I felt like a zombie, and I felt all this pain, and I felt like behind this veil.
It's like an out-of-body experience.
Totally,
like you're conscious,
totally,
but you're like,
totally.
I have no idea
Totally.
what this physical
Yes.
is.
And at the same time, something in me was going like, there's something so totally wrong here. It's like I'm in the wrong movie. Get me out of here. Like really, that's like, you know, that's how I was, you know, feeling, what I was feeling and hearing in me. It's like, no. This is not like what they're trying to diagnose me with is not what's happening. So then I really have to say, luckily at that time, I had a very good British friend in Taiwan. And she said to me, Gabi, I'll bring you to the Chinese doctor.
Oh, okay.
And I basically said, you know, whatever, I don't care. Just I need some help. And so she brought me to a Chinese medical doctor who luckily spoke English or speaks English very well. And there is a few things that I want to share because I find they're so important in general. Like the first thing this doctor did is he like put his hand on my arm and he looked straight into my eyes. And you know, with his full presence, he said to me, don't worry, you'll be fine. And this moment, even though, you know, I wasn't really conscious, right? Fully conscious, it like etched itself into the memory of my body. Like it was like something, like all my cells, like really felt and heard that.
Yeah, that you're going to be okay.
I'm going to be fine. And that was really the starting point of this healing journey, which really became a total transformational journey. And then initially I saw this Chinese doctor every week for 1.5 years for acupuncture, for Chinese medicine. And, you know, over time, slowly, step by step, I really could feel how my body started to put itself together.
Wow, so much to unpack in that little storyline there. So first I wanted to say, at what point did you learn that it was because of the epidural?
I was actually years later, again with a Chinese medical doctor, or actually 2 of them, I should say, because years later I still started to feel there was something not quite right, and something, I always had this feeling there's something stuck there in like the lower part of my spine, and I couldn't quite figure out what it was. And it was actually also affecting like really like above my head. Like I constantly had this feeling as if some pressure was like
On your
down
sacral.
on here on my forehead,
Solar plexus, yeah.
and really like pushing down my eyes, like, and not having clear eyesight, like. So, and I, with all the different practices and teachings that then over the years I had, experienced in my own healing transformation, whether it's Tai Chi, Qigong, or other transformational tools, this just wouldn't go away. And so I again, sought help from Chinese medical doctors. And then there is one with the pulse diagnostics. He is so connected that I could really sense, like, it was almost like scanning your body. And without even knowing my story or what had happened to me, he immediately said, you had an accident like between the third and the fifth, like, vertebrae here by the lower spine. And it's like you got punctured there, and there's still drugs in there, like deep in there. And that's where I went like, wait a second. The birth, and he was like, yeah, yes. And then he could actually describe to me and say, okay, see, this is actually, then I even found out that it happens regularly. It's not actually that uncommon. He told me it happens regularly, that it gets punctured slightly on the wrong spot, and the drugs actually, instead of going down, they go up the spine and to the brain.
Okay.
And these are strong drugs. And he says, oh, and in your case, probably, you could almost describe it like a severe overdose, because maybe my system in that sense is already more sensitive, right? Because I never really used a lot of like medicine in terms of, or drugs or anything, because I know I'm very sensitive. I don't need much. So it's like, okay, that's kind of like an overdose, and it's still stuck in there. And then he gave me specific Chinese medicine for that. And I had such an immediate strong reaction, like for the following few days. I actually had to rest because I could feel it so strongly working in my sacrum, in the lower part of my spine. Plus, I could feel the part that was sitting in my head, right? Really in the brain. It was started to lift and clear too.
Wow. That was such an important information there, because you answered this as well, because when you talked about in the beginning about the epidural, I actually then wanted to also ask you how common is it that this happens, and you just explained that it's actually more common than we know.
Yeah.
But because you're more sensitive, as you said, and more, I guess, in a way we can say aware with your own body, you were very alert to what was happening. Whereas I think in our modern society, a lot of women who go through pregnancy oftentimes probably wouldn't be as observant to how they felt if an incident like this occurred, or let alone like how to go about resolving this issue. So I think that's helpful to know, and I think hopefully that's some insightful information for women out there who do choose to use epidural during a birthing experience. I also wanted to go back and ask, so during this time of healing, with a newborn and young twin boys, and had just moved to a new environment, which you fell in love with, how did you go about managing all those roles, right? Like a new mother, a wife, still trying to process your pains and what was happening to your body. So if you could share a little bit about that period.
That's a very good question. And I can tell you one thing, actually, at that time, and when the things happened, really, it was a very unconscious process. It was totally unconscious on my side. And it was really like survival mode. It was craziness. It was survival mode. I am entirely grateful to my mom because she just came from Austria to live with us for a few months and to help take care essentially of the newborn and with our boys. I mean, I have to say I was also lucky to, let's say, be in a family condition where, you know, I didn't have to worry about money or making money myself. We had a helper at home. So I have to say, in many ways, I realized later on, you know, how blessed I was that I had certain things in my life. But it was craziness, right? And for me personally, and also I know for the people around me, there were a lot of fears. There was a lot of anxiety coming up because, you know, I was kind of like, okay, this is crazy, you know, I have a newborn, I have 2 small children, I cannot I really could not function. There's nothing about, you know, just put your mind to it, right? Like when the destruction, let's say it's on such a physical level as the nervous system, you can't function. It's not something you can just switch on and off, right? So it was really like, you know, a muddling through a day by day thing. And I'm so grateful for all the people in my life at that time because I know how difficult it was for them as well and how much fear there was. And then, you know, the fears and the thoughts of, oh my God, what if I stay like this? What if it doesn't get better? Oh my God, right? How can I ever, you know, take care of my family again? Or what will happen? And so in many ways, I would say looking back later, because through the healing and transformation, really, I would say the key of all of that was that everything I became more consciously aware of it. And actually, the healing and transformation process really helped me to much more deeply connect with my body, with what my body knows, what my body needs, with my heart, with what I really want to call an intelligence that is far greater than us. And, you know, maybe some people call it God. I want to just call it the intelligence of the universe. And I realized there are so many angels or beings with us all the time in form, like in human form, but in all, even plants, you know. They are beings too, they're real beings, you know. Like one of the things that helped me the most, and I'm so grateful for my mom because she actually suggested to me, hey, just sit in the garden. Just sit in the garden. You don't need to do anything. Just sit in the garden. Just sit with the plants. Just look at them, you know, just sit there. And a friend, you know, who sent me a meditation CD from Hong Kong, and in the meditation CD, it guided me actually to walk on the earth to a big tree, to sit under the tree, lean against the tree trunk, and just receive the healing energies of the tree. And, you know, even just sharing about this, I almost want to cry because that is where over the years, with everything, all the craziness that it was in the outside during that time, and even though it was a very unconscious process, until I had myself reached a certain, you know, level of awareness, there was this support and this intelligence always there. Mm-hmm. And always, you know, somehow, like almost magically, right, bringing me the right people, the right support, the doctor, the messages from inside, even though I had like consciously no awareness what was going on. And that I realized over the years that this incident was the greatest gift that I have received from the universe, because it has actually helped me to become much more consciously aware, mm-hmm. of that intelligence, mm-hmm. that's always here by nature.
Yeah, I think that's such a great way to put that into perspective. When we get into accidents or we get into that rut, how do you change your mindset to view it in that light? But of course, it takes time. Like you said, it's like always in hindsight.
Exactly.
But at the same time, it's slowly that willingness to be open to, like, you know, and like you said earlier, like, I'll go see a Chinese doctor. I don't know what this is, but I don't care because I'm in so much pain. I just, whatever you want to give to me that can help me relieve this pain so I can go back to functioning how I normally am. So just really that step one of just being open to whatever source or whatever word you want to use to call that, to go towards that direction. So then I wanted to ask, which you kind of brushed upon in terms of like your healing journey and all the different modalities that you were exposed to, and how different people in your life, you know, brought you different exposure. It sounds like you tried a lot of different things during this period. And so if you could share for yourself, like how did that work, you know, in terms of like trial and error, right? You're seeing a lot of different teachers and doctors and practices, and what worked for you, and how has that kind of been your programming for yourself, but also what you want to offer with your teachings now?
Well, very good question. Thank you. Well, I would say, you know, again, this is looking back, right? I realized that any, you know, modality, any teacher, any practice that I have practiced and experienced or learned over these years in my own journey, it was always exactly what I needed at that time. And that's where I realized, you know, again, this intelligence of life or the universe, that even though, yes, there came a point maybe where I had to say, okay, this does not work for me anymore, or maybe this part of it doesn't work for me. But I realized looking back, actually life gave me exactly what I needed to like grow and transform. Even though sometimes it really wasn't easy, or it was really sometimes really triggering me, or sometimes might even to the outside look like, oh, this really doesn't work at all. But looking back, I realized this whole journey really made sense, you know?
It's always when you look back.
Exactly.
If you take the time to look back.
Absolutely. Yeah. And by the way, thank you for saying this, because I think that is so important. Because it is by looking back that we can realize so much. And I think one of the things that we have really forgotten in our cultures almost everywhere in the world is to actually take times to pause, to look back, to digest, to integrate. Because that's the crucial time of learning, of where we can see, hey, whoa, there is a certain intelligence to this. Even though when I was in the midst of it, I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And that's just the one part of it that I would say, yes, every teacher, everything that I have practiced and experienced really had its place and its time and served its purpose. Because I needed it at that time, and it was an important, you could say, piece or step that actually allowed me to heal a little bit more deeply, transform, and to grow.
Right.
But to grow as a whole being, right? Like physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, all of it. And maybe at different times there was a focus more on the physical, sometimes it was more on the spiritual, right? So it's really that. And I think there's also a value of looking back then also to realizing, oh, okay, I can really, really trust my intuition. Like I could really then see, okay, whenever I felt something wasn't working anymore, it's because it was really time to let it go And
It's
then
our compass.
actually, exactly. And then actually the you could say whoever and whatever I needed next really would show up.
Yeah.
And through all of it, I think there is one, like one thread that really goes through it that I also realized. And that is really, it all helped me to reconnect with nature. And when I say nature, I mean nature outside of us, like actual real nature of the earth, nature and the intelligence of nature here, and nature inside, like my own true nature, which actually includes all these experiences and all these parts of me.
Yes, because we're all connected.
Exactly. And this deep remembering and connection that I actually share with nature, where through this, even just being in nature or being in certain places in nature, just being there is already healing.
I wanted to also ask, a lot of times in very deep transformational experiences for people, a lot of old relationships end.
Yeah.
New ones emerge.
Yeah.
At this time in your life when you were going through this transformation period, how should I shape this? Were there significant relationships there that shifted? And as a new mother, how were you being conscious in raising your kids, right? As you were working through a lot of these things, but also trying to raise human beings to also understand how to see the world in this light that you're also learning to process at the same time, right? And giving them that, constructive feedback in how you mother them, or how your husband and you chose to raise them, and finding that same values, right? So I was just wondering if you could share a little bit about that experience as well.
Sure. Yes, I would say the most significant relationship that really completely changed as well in that time was my marriage. So we divorced. And I just want to say that the way, I see and I feel it is because we are in different worlds. And that's fine. It was literally just the worlds didn't go together anymore. And so again, I want to emphasize that I think a lot of it all the time is a process. And yes, while, we do the healing, the transformational work, having different tools or support available, really, I would almost want to say one thing I realized is that to really be very conscious about it is not always possible.
Right.
Because I think that's also part of being human, right? There's so many elements in there. It's so complex, and there's emotions, and there's all kinds of things happening. So I want to answer the question in a way that I realized what helps me and my children the most over the years of going through this transformation is when I really am connected inside myself, I really follow my intuition and my inner heart guidance, because that's also how I can sense what is going on with my children. I can have an open conversation with them about it, where they also feel safe that they can just openly talk about it. And then, it just becomes a process for everyone where instead of maybe, let's say, me telling them, they just experience. They experience that life is also that, life is also sometimes things don't work out the way we thought or we wanted them to work out. And sometimes it is painful.
Yeah.
And sometimes, it is angry, and sometimes it is frustrating, and sometimes there are tears. The same ways there are laughter and joy.
And your emotions are valid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that, most importantly, I think that we don't have to be afraid of them, but we can, learn to feel them, to express them in a healthy way. And sometimes we don't, because we are human, right? So we can learn to also take responsibility for that and say, hey, sorry, I shouted at you because I was actually totally freaked out myself and it wasn't about you. And you just make them part of life, I would say. And that is something I'm also very grateful for, that at least in terms of very practical conditions then, right? I'm very grateful, for example, that my ex-husband and I, both of us, there were certain things that was really important to us when it comes to the children, meaning we still wanted them to grow up having a mother and a father. So we live nearby, so it's very easy for the children to go from here to there and back, and so certain things, right? Or for example, for myself over the years, right? Whenever, there were situations where the emotions were really running very high and we were all triggered, right? Then really coming back to myself and just going there and literally almost physically, physically going no, I put my weapons down, I choose peace. And then just, how should I say, in maybe also an intuitive way, letting the children be part of the process, while at the same time, and I think that's why our intuition is so valuable, because intuition, and again, it's something I also had to learn again over the years. It's not that I, never made a mistake there, but I realized even that, right, then also helps the children. Because I can tell them, well, I know I used to say that, but I have changed my mind because I have learned this, or I have grown in that way, and that's fine.
Yeah. Open communication.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Well, we're coming short on time, so I would love for you to share with us what your new business that's going to launch soon is all about. I think it's a combination of a lot of things you worked on over the years. So that's one question. And then I usually end my conversation by asking the guest, what keeps you grounded? And then also, what resources has helped you over the years, in this transformation healing period, and just something that you would, whether it's a book or a mentor, or it could be anything that you would share to anyone you encountered, who's kind of going through this transformation themselves, and that you feel it was valuable to you, that you would be like, I recommend you, check out this person or read this book. So I think we can kind of conclude our conversation here with these last two questions.
Sure. It's called Awoven, Journeys That Connect. And I'm very, very happy that I'm co-creating this with two wonderful friends and human beings, Leven and Carol. And so, we're having an earthquake. Yeah. Hello, shake with her. It's like somebody is listening. Thank you. Bless you.
All right. Yeah, the lights are moving. Okay.
Well, since we're having an earthquake, maybe I really, may I share something here?
Of course.
Because I just feel like, this is so interesting. This is, for me, this intelligence of life. So when the earth or the nature brings something, some signal, something happens.
Like
just now with the earthquake, I have learned to actually stop for a moment. And first of all, I always say, of course, make sure you are safe, right? That's the first thing. But then I always, I move my body with the earth. and my breath. And for me, you know, earthquakes are very much a sign that Mother Earth is releasing something. She, as we, is healing, is transforming, is rebirthing. So that is really, you know, that deep, deep connection with the earth that I would say I have rediscovered over the years. And to me, you know, yes, again, make sure it's safe. But I feel like when we go back into that connection and we start to actually feel and sense ourselves again as part of the earth, even, you know, earthquakes lose the fear or the feeling of fear, because to me it is this feeling of the mother actually always supports us and always guides us also to be safe and to be held, like quite literally when you think about it, like it's, you know, on one hand the earth actually holding us right in place and up,
Yeah.
or also keeping us grounded, because you asked about grounded, right? And at the same time, it is the space. Sometimes we call it space, or, you know, it's actually not empty space. It is really the energy of the light that is holding us together as well. And yeah, so I felt like this is just something that obviously wanted to be shared now.
It's a good time to do it. I think it's very appropriate in our conversation.
Yes.
It goes with the theme.
Yes. And so I always stop a moment, you know, I move with the earth, of course, as soon as we're in a safe place. And I listen. I stop, I listen. I go like, okay, what do you want to tell me? And I give gratitude and blessing. And that in general, I want to say, maybe this is already your more kind of second question, but that practice of just, you know, connecting with the earth, just connecting with the earth wherever we are, because wherever we are, it's earth, nature, and breathing, listening, stopping, pausing, giving gratitude, giving blessing, even asking, you know, okay, what do you want to tell me? What can I do for you? That has become really my main practice that I really want to share with people and encourage people to try out, in terms of keeping us grounded and keeping us in that connection. And actually, I almost want to say, in our, you know, true place in this web of life. And web of life now actually relates very well to Awoven.
Yeah, I was going to say, great transition.
Which is it's really, so it's on one hand an online community that Leven has been already building for over a year, as a wonderful online community for human beings from all over the world to meet regularly online in really authentic connection and dialogue, and to practice that as well. And then in the meantime, you know, and we really, this was not something we had planned or we weren't even aware of until recently. Pretty much at the same time, Leven started Awoven as this online community from Hawaii. Carol and I started giving retreats here in Taiwan. Retreats that are, you know, in special places that really hold very, very beautiful, healing, transformative energies. And then, like, we connected, all three of us, we got connected, I almost want to say back here in Taiwan with Leven back here. And the three of us, we really felt that this is something we want to bring together and weave together into a vehicle, like we were really seeing and feeling it like a vehicle but it's a vehicle that is made like more from organic materials. Like look at it, maybe like a like a bird would build a nest, for example, right? And this vehicle actually goes and meets people and meets groups and meets organizations where they're at, and brings them on journeys that connect. Meaning, journeys that connect with nature around, but also our own nature within, with ourselves, with each other, and especially connect, us back to also this intelligence of nature or the universe that is always present, that is always, actually wanting to cooperate and collaborate with us. Connecting us back also to this deep knowing of nature is actually not about survival of the fittest, but nature is about thriving together in collaboration, in support, in reciprocity, with care, with compassion. And so this is really what Awoven Journeys That Connect is going to be about. From practically speaking, workshops of a few hours in nature or in a special place, to connective outings for companies for a whole day, or even corporate retreats or retreats for individuals.
Oh, that's exciting. And so this will be online, but also physically in Taiwan,
Exactly.
Is that right? Okay.
So physically it will really be in Taiwan. Okay. We have a few special places here that we collaborate with. And we'll really focus on Taiwan in the first place, because that's where we are and that's where we really feel and have the connection. And then there's also the online community that people could just continue to join if they want to stay connected, or even continue to connect further or go deeper. And then over time, this web of life, in a way, this Awoven, will definitely also weave itself into other places on earth. I'm sure about that.
Okay, that's really exciting. I will put all the information on the episode resource guide below. So
fantastic.
Your website, your social media, so people can connect with you. Besides for Awoven though, and before we wrap up here, I just wanted you to also share a little bit, because I know you do some other offerings as well. So I think if people, because we didn't really talk too much into this earlier, but I would love for you to share with the audience, if they wanted to seek you out, what kind of offerings do you give? So someone could be a yoga teacher, or someone could be a something teacher, or etc. What is your offerings?
I do also specifically personally, on one hand, work with companies, with teams. And that could be either focused on a whole human being well-being, like sessions that introduce very simple daily practices. I call it Eastern and Western Tai Chi or body sand, like one of those sessions that you have experienced online as well. So if companies, for example, for their teams, for their employees, want to focus more on well-being, employee well-being, then that could be sessions. They go from 1 hour to, let's say, 3-4 hours. I also work with executive management teams that can really go all the way to things like circular economy, eco-social sustainability. How can we, through connecting with ourselves and taking care of our own well-being, also actually shift the thinking in our company to have more sustainable well-being habits and practices, also in relation, to the environment, to the society, to the bigger or larger whole. And I also teach that in universities here in Taiwan, actually, I'm happy to see more and more universities here are starting to offer courses in sustainability. And usually these courses are in English, and they are open to any student in the university from any field to take the course and get credits.
Okay.
And I love that because it's normally really mixed groups, and it's circular economy, eco-social sustainability. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. It sounds very exciting that there's all these, possibilities. So
Yes.
I'll leave it to the audience to reach out to you if they're interested. And I just thank you so much for your time and for sharing your journey. And I don't know if you have anything else you would like to add before we say goodbye.
Yeah, I want to first of all say thanks so much for having me and giving me this opportunity to share. Also, maybe what we could do, if that's fine, I could share some other resources that I really found very, very valuable over the years in my own journey, and you could share those also in the links.
Yeah, I will.
And other than that, just to your listeners, whoever is listening, feel free to reach out if you have other questions or if you feel called to try out or do something. And most importantly, stay connected with yourself. Listen to your body, what the body needs, what the body says. Connect with the earth, with nature, and just be well. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to Curito Connects. For more Connects content, collaborations, and discoveries set to inspire you on your own individual journey, please head to our website at www.curito.co. Until next time, stay inspired, and thank you for joining us at Curito Connects.